The Industry 5 Forces model from Professor Porter is a landmark of any strategy that has been set since the model was introduced in management in the late 70s, early 80s. The model is very straightforward, if it was simple, like explained in a very straightforward way, which are the five areas in which you have to look at to understand which are the forces working in your industry. Unfortunately, the fact that it's very simple and it's very straightforward took some managers, consultants, practitioners to use it as a simple framework to take some notes on the 5 areas. The reality is that the Porter framework has a lot of quantitative and logical structure behind the simple framework we are used to see. So usually what you see is, let's say, the 5 blocks and some names here, but in the reality you can see here there are a number of variables, quantitative, logical, connected variables behind the model. So the idea in this video is to try to create a way in which we operationalize, make the model usable, operative for people who want to apply it. And we start from the value system. The value system is the way in which Professor Porter described the system through which added value is taken to final customer. So you see, it's a number of value chains that are much more famous in the Porter structure and in the management practice, but there is a number of value chains connected together that took value, adding value on each step, and took value and take value to the final customer. So the point is we have to use this process that is the only relevant process customer-wise to understand how each part of the framework interacts. And so we will, let's say, substitute for a moment in the logical structure the value system, and we will slash in or slash on the model, on the framework, the value system, and we come up with 16 variables in 4 areas that you have to deep analyze in order to measure really the forces that are working on your industry, instead of just saying, looking at the simple image of the 5 blocks, say, oh yes, buyers are very powerful. That's not the way in which you should use operatively the model, but it's analyzing these 16 variables divided in these 4 areas in great depth. So let's look at the first area, the structure, which is the structure of the value system, how competitors are competing within the industry, and how concentration in suppliers and customer are changing the balance of power within the value system. So structure, are competitors few or many? That's the way in which we usually synthesize the process, but to get there, you have to do a number of analyses. The first one is number of competitors, but then there is also which is the dimension of these competitors, because if competitors are of the same dimension, they have the same way of doing things, in the terms, in the words of Porter, the likelihood of mavericks is great. People that say, oh, okay, I can spot some positioning forces, I can maybe lower price and get a better position, I can do that vis-a-vis other competitors, gaining some market share. And so there is a lot of more vivid enthusiast competitors within the industry, and the overall competition is, let's say, rich. On the other end, if there is a very powerful guy, very few powerful guy that can react very strong on this mavericks action, then usually the overall competition in the value system is, let's say, lower or more static. But then it's not just a matter of numbering the number of competitors, but it's a matter of which is the competitive posture, which is the strategy, and which are the personalities of every company working within our competitive environment. So if there are different strategy, different origin, different personalities, in that case, the relationship within the industry create differentiation, and let's say they can position themselves in a very different way. But on the other side, the competitors understand each other not very much, because they are very different. So the point here is that if there are usually very hard differentiation between competitors, the competition usually is lower because differentiation is higher, but the way in which the industry as a whole act through its players is very low, because players are very different each other. And then there is the strategic stake. If there is very high strategic stakes for some industry players, then there is the very harsh competition. If, for example, lowering a price or answering to a lowering price action from competitors is making me losing money, or it's making me writing off huge investment, I will react more harsher. If, let's say, if there is more profitability around, the profit pool is high, if I don't make too much money on that segment, I can maybe hire the other segment. I don't have too much investment in terms of high fixed cost already put on the table, so I can better manage different action from competitors. In that case, probably the level of competition is lower. But then two big forces are pushing in our value system, our industry, and the two forces are the concentration on the customer side and the concentration of the supply side chain. So customers, if some buyers are particularly large, or they are very few buying a lot of things, they usually have a lot of power vis-a-vis you and your colleagues or your competitors within the industry. So the amount of numbers of the concentration, the amount of numbers of buyers that you have, it's important. And please remind that here buyers can be either final customers, so consumers, or let's say channels that are customer for example, production industry. So maybe you have a lot of final consumers, but you have very few customers to which you sell to get to your final consumer, to your final customer. Therefore, you have to consider which is the structure of the, let's say, on the right of your value system. If we look on the left of our value system, we have suppliers. And here again, if there are very few suppliers supplying something that is for us very important, then those few suppliers will have a lot of power. If we have a lot of suppliers, then their power will decrease. But again, it's not just a matter of number of suppliers. Another example can be the fact that we are buying from an industry, so from a number of different suppliers, an industry of suppliers, for which we are not very important as a company or as an industry. Therefore, they are not very interested in serving us because we represent a very small part of their revenues. In that case, they have a lot of power because we need their products and they don't need to sell to us our products. Therefore, it's another way of, let's say, seeing pressures from the left side of our value chain, suppliers, or the right side of the structure of our customers, either be a channel or a final customer. So as you see the structure of your industry, the industry in which you are in, but also the structures of the industry towards you are selling to, and the industry from which you are getting the structure of the industry of your suppliers from which you're getting supplies. All these three areas of industry structure must be analyzed deeply to understand forces working on the model. And then we have other areas, and one of the most important is marketing variables, the area here of the system to operationalize a portal. And we will see in the next video which are the marketing variables we have to analyze.